Hello there, I'm Rachel and welcome to Biotic-ish, the channel where we use science to try and explain how crazy science fiction stuff might work. We've all been to a dinosaur-themed birthday party in our day, and our inner child would explode at the thought of having a pet dinosaur, but the movie Jurassic Park kind of makes the point that it might not be the best idea. Jurassic Park is an absolute classic movie where this mastermind billionaire uses prehistoric DNA to bring dinosaurs back to life to create an island theme park, and he invites these two paleontologists and a mathematician to come tour his one-of-a-kind zoo. And obviously every good movie has a nice dose of drama, in this case vicious dinosaurs on the loose, people running and screaming for their lives, some more successful than others, and they ultimately realize that maybe this theme park was not the best idea after all. But hey, got me thinking, is it even possible to bring dinosaurs back to life? Okay, so in the film, the Jurassic Park scientists were able to extract dino DNA from blood in prehistoric mosquitoes who fed on dinosaurs and got preserved after getting stuck in tree sap, which later fossilized to become amber. After sequencing the pieces of preserved DNA, geneticists filled in the holes in the sequence with frog DNA to complete the code, and with that, they now have the code to make a baby dinosaur. So there's a couple problems here with how they supposedly clone dinosaurs, which is what we're talking about here, cloning. Cloning is the process of producing genetically identical individuals, and while scientists have learned to do this artificially, some organisms naturally produce clones. There are three types of artificial cloning: gene cloning, which produces copies of genes or segments of DNA; therapeutic cloning, which produces embryonic stem cells for experiments aimed at creating tissues to replace injured or diseased tissues; and reproductive cloning, which produces copies of whole animals, and which is what Jurassic Park was trying to do. Basically, how reproductive cloning is done is scientists take DNA from a body cell of the animal they want to clone, transfer it into an egg cell that has had its own DNA removed, and then transfer that into a surrogate mother to allow the cloned embryo to develop. But the thing is, there's a couple issues when it comes to cloning dino DNA. The first thing we have to talk about is actually just getting our hands on dinosaur DNA. See, it's not that easy and it's never been done. So DNA is really vulnerable and breaks down easily if there's sun, water, other contamination. Currently, the oldest DNA ever found is about 1 million years old, but here we're talking about finding like 65 million year old DNA. DNA has a half-life of 521 years, which means that every 521 years, half of the DNA you originally had has decayed. And so if you do the math, after about 6.8 million years, it's basically impossible for a strand of DNA to be intact. So actually, it's true that scientists have found prehistoric mosquitoes containing dinosaur blood, like the scientists in the movie, but all of the DNA it used to have has been degraded. Darn. Okay, well, let's just say scientists somehow miraculously were able to get their hands on a bit of dino DNA. We invent time travel and go back to snatch a sneaky little sample. What about this business with the frog DNA? Yeah, good try, Hollywood, but not so much. Couple problems with this. Firstly, they get a strand of DNA with missing pieces, but it's impossible to know what are even the missing pieces unless you have a complete strand for reference. Also, let's say you knew what parts were missing and you tossed in frog DNA in those holes, you wouldn't be getting a dinosaur, you'd be getting a dino frog or a frogosaur. You'd be getting a dinosaur frog hybrid. And if you could use this hybrid technique, if you were going to choose an animal to cross a dinosaur with, something like a bird would be a way better choice since evolutionarily they're way more closely related. And then also, let's say you replicate the DNA genetic code perfectly somehow. There's still development to think about. An animal developing in an egg is a super complicated process that involves lots of genes switching on and off at just the right times, and you'd need the perfect dinosaur egg with the perfect dinosaur egg chemistry. In the movie, they just tossed the dino DNA into ostrich eggs, which realistically would work just as well as trying to hatch a snake from a hummingbird egg or birth an elephant from a house cat. So what we're saying is the Jurassic Park cloning science doesn't super seem to check out. But hey, maybe there's another way we could bring dinosaurs back to life. Here's how. It's called reverse engineering. So to start, genetic engineering is basically taking pieces of DNA, combining them with other pieces of DNA, and then putting that back into an organism. And it can be used to transfer genes within and even between species to make improved or even novel organisms. You can get the DNA you're playing with by isolating it or copying it, or by artificially synthesizing it if you know the secret code, or rather, genetic code. So theoretically, using genetic engineering, you could take any gene from any organism and put it into the DNA of another organism. And what you get when you mix DNA from two species is what's called a transgenic organism. So what you could maybe do is start with an organism that kind of sort of resembles a dinosaur, like say a lizard, then reverse engineer a dinosaur by editing germline cells or sperm and egg cells using genetic engineering to include genes with dinosaur-like traits. For example, isolate a gene from an organism for big claws, insert that into the lizard genome, and then you'll get a lizard with big dino-like claws. And then from there, you could find a gene for sharp, pointy teeth and copy and paste that into the lizard DNA, and so on and so forth until you end up with an organism that kind of sort of looks like a dinosaur. Obviously, it's a little more complicated than that, but you get the idea. Thing is, at the end of the day, you'd not be getting exactly a dinosaur just like the ones that used to exist. You'd be creating a modern dinosaur lookalike. But hey, that's close enough for me. If people are fine to settle for Elvis impersonators in Vegas, don't tell me they'll snuff their noses at a living, breathing dinosaur mimic creation. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and comment down below what you think about having a pet dinosaur. Thanks for watching.